somebody that's looking to purchase a home in the market right now. And luckily for you, there's a bit more supply on the market versus last year. So there's going to be some really good choices for you. But there's also 10 types of homes that I would either stay away from or look really deeply into before you go ahead and purchase the home, because if you don't do your due diligence, it could potentially become a money pit. And if you're new to my channel, I'm Katrin.pfitzenreiter. I'm a real estate agent here in Sarasota, Florida. Let's get into the top 10 homes that you need to be really careful about before you go ahead with the purchase. Let's start off with number 1. So in real estate, we always say location, location, location. You want to make sure that you are able to purchase in the best location based on your budget, because at the end of the day, the location you can't change. The home you can update, you can make modifications, you can fix it up.
But the location you can't change.
The very first one that I would be very careful about is purchasing a home in a place that could potentially cause
Health issues.
Industrial plants and disposal sites, areas that have a high level of air and water pollution. Do a lot of research online, see what plants, what industrial sites are near the home. You can also ask your real estate agent to pull this information. And if you can, if there's other good options out there, I would definitely avoid moving into an area that could potentially cause you harm, your health. We don't really know all the things that causes cancer or chronic illnesses. But what we do know is that places that are more polluted are more likely to cause major health issues. And so why would you want to put yourself in that situation? Number 2 is termites. So I would never buy a house that has an active termite infestation. First of all, the seller should never put a house on the market when there's clearly an issue that hasn't been fixed. That's a problem here. Run away, go look at other homes. Now, if you find a house, you're really interested in it, but then you learn that there was termite issues in the past, I wouldn't necessarily get turned away from that without really looking into it a little bit more. Here in Florida, it is quite common actually for homes to get termites. There's even a saying, or maybe it's a joke, but I think there's some truth to it, and that is if your home hasn't had termite issues, it's just a matter of time. And that's assuming that your home isn't protected against termites. But if you're interested in a home and you know it had termites issues, I would dig in deeper. I would ask the seller for all sorts of documentation. So for example, what was the damage that was caused? What repair work have you done? Can I see the work order? Can I see the warranties, the guarantees that you have for the work that has been done to rectify the situation? Let me see a clearance letter that clearly demonstrates that the home is now free and clear from termites. That kind of conversation and documentation, I think, is going to make you feel better about either moving ahead with the purchase or turning away and finding yourself a new home. So when it comes to termites, yes, active, move away. If it had it in the past, get more information and then determine what makes sense for you. Number 3 is crime rate. So I would never buy a house in an area that's not considered a safe area. When it comes to safety, a lot of it is completely subjective. But if the majority of the people think that area A is not safe, well, guess what that does to supply and demand? It lowers demand, and so the value of the homes will most likely not appreciate because the area is not getting a lot of demand. Real estate agents, for a lot of reasons, but also legally, are not allowed to tell you if a neighborhood is safe or not safe. If I have a customer that asks me, well, what's the safety in the neighborhood? I would call the police station. I've actually told one of my customers to call the police station because they asked me about neighborhood X. You know, I couldn't say anything. They called the police station. This is true. And the police officer, whoever they talked to, said, no, I would not buy in that neighborhood because it's dangerous at nighttime. You do not want to be there. My customer ended up not purchasing in that neighborhood, and they looked elsewhere. I would never purchase a home in an area that's not considered safe for a lot of reasons. First of all, I want to make sure that I live somewhere that is relatively safe, but also I want to make sure that the home appreciates. And if the home is not in a considered safe neighborhood, it's more likely than not that it's not going to appreciate. When it comes to homes that have had major mold and mildew issues, maybe it was a house that was flooded, perhaps during the last hurricane that we had here in Florida, it becomes stigmatized. A lot of people will probably look away and purchase another house. So for that reason, when it comes to depreciation of a home's value, it's going to be there. But also, I'd be concerned about how the situation was remedied. Was it remedied correctly? If it wasn't treated correctly, it could spread easily to other areas of the house. And if the bad type of mold gets into the air conditioner and then spreads through the HVAC system, those spokes can easily be flushed out into all these different areas of the house, and you breathe it in, just not good for your health. When it comes to mold, there's hundreds, probably thousands of different types of mold, and not all of them are going to be bad. And typically in any house, especially here in Florida where it's very wet and humid, you're going to find mold, and most of it is not going to be bad. But if the house was infested with mold because of a major flooding, that's a cause of concern. Turn away. You really like this one house, you saw it on Zillow, Realtor.com, and now you're heading over there with your buyer's agent. You get out and you hear a lot of road noise. Maybe the house is really close to the highway. I would say don't do it unless it's going to be your forever home and you don't care about noise. But most people are going to be sensitive towards road noise, and they're probably going to bypass that house and look for a home that's in a much more tranquil setting. Now, of course, if you're purchasing a condo or maybe a co-op in New York City, well, it goes with the territory. Totally different story. But if you're outside of a big city in a more suburban type of lifestyle, then absolutely you're going to want to stay away from noisy areas, because people want to live in a tranquil, more quieter location. It could be very alluring to purchase a home from the 60s or 70s that has not gone through major renovations work. You're getting it for a really good price. And so you're thinking, yeah, I'm just gonna remodel the kitchen and the bathroom, and I'll make the outside look nicer. And you're forgetting to think about the fact that the roof probably needs to be exchanged. The windows are really old. Those are gonna have to come out eventually. You're gonna have to replace those windows. Electric setup, that's probably really old, is gonna have to get replaced. And let me tell you, getting a new electric box and just bringing it up to code can be very expensive. Same with the plumbing. That's what you have to have a good feel for financially to make sure that you can actually even afford that home. That, yeah, it's going to look like it's cheap, but then you need to add in all the improvements. I think purchasing a home that is quite old, if you're a first-time buyer or somebody that's not really in touch with how much it costs construction-wise, that maybe doesn't have all the connections to the right contractors, you're probably going to be over your head. So I would say definitely look at a much younger home alternative. I think you're going to thank yourself afterwards. Number 7 is purchasing a home in a school system that's not considered desirable by most people is probably not the best decision that you will make. If you're purchasing a home in a school district that's not considered desirable, then your target market, so the audience that would potentially be interested in that home that you may be reselling in the future, is going to be much smaller. And so if you're counting on price appreciation, the chances of that happening is going to be far less than if you bought into a neighborhood where the school system is considered very desirable, where people are going to want to live. And so how do you determine if a home is in a good school system? Well, there's lots of information online that you can find. You can just Google it and see if there's ranking information from credible sources. But maybe better even yet is to talk to a school representative. They can really fill you in. And here's a little tip for you. If you thought, well, I'm just going to ask my real estate agent, and your real estate agent gives you an answer, they weren't supposed to. It's not ethical and it's not legal for us to do that. Number 8 is, more often than not, you should probably stay away from a flip home. And how do you determine if a house is being flipped? Well, you have the historic information of the sales of the home. So you go back to the last time it was sold before it came on the market just now. You can see if it was 3 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, a short period of time before it went back on the market this time around, then more likely than not, it was a flip. If now all of a sudden the house is completely updated, right? New kitchen, new bathroom. Flippers are there to make money. They're flipping the house. They purchase it at a lower price, put a little bit of money in there, and then they're reselling it for a profit. And to help them make a higher profit, a lot of flippers may use more low quality materials, right? It's like putting lipstick on a pig. You're going to want to see beyond that and really look at the integrity of the house. What needs to be fixed? How much is it going to cost me? You got to be able to see beyond the cosmetic fixes, which again, a lot of times is just there to kind of give the illusion of this home having been completely fixed up, when in fact, You may have to change the plumbing system and the electric system, but you're not really paying attention to that because inside of the house, it looks pretty nice, right? Because it's updated. A lot of times contractors will use cheap labor. Their work isn't polished, right? So I'll give you an example. I just recently went into a flip home and they had done the floors. But as I walked in, I noticed that the grout wasn't perfect and actually the tiles were sitting somewhat uneven too. And so you gotta be aware that a lot of times when you're dealing with a flip home, the cosmetic updates may look okay initially, but because they're using cheap labor and they're using cheap materials, a lot of times the upgrades can deteriorate much faster than they typically would if you had used a quality contractor utilizing quality materials. When it comes to flip homes, definitely do your due diligence. Number 9 is you're interested in a home and you find out that the seller's never lived there. And so you look at the seller's property disclosure and it's crossed out saying seller has no idea and seller's never lived there. And there could be a lot of reasons for it. Maybe the seller is a flipper, or maybe the seller inherited the house. The issue with that is that you don't have a lot of information about the property. You don't know if the property was well maintained during the time that the seller owned it. Worse yet is the fact that the seller, not having lived there, has no idea of potential hidden problems that the house could have. Maybe plumbing issues, maybe there's a leak, maybe the AC isn't working correctly. And so if the seller doesn't know of these issues, the seller hasn't been able to fix them because the seller didn't know. And so these issues may come up after you own the home if you were to go ahead with the purchase of this house. And so if you're in a situation where you like a house but the seller has never lived there, the seller has no information to give you about the house, I would probably look elsewhere unless you're really in love with that house. And then I would make sure you get very good inspectors into that home. Then lastly, I would stay away from homes that have severe structural issues because those are very, very expensive to fix. For example, you may encounter a home where there are severe cracks in the foundation. Perhaps the flooring is completely uneven. In Florida, the soil is very prone to shifting, and so if you encounter a house that's already had foundational issues to begin with significant settling, who's to say that after it's being fixed that it won't happen again? So I would be very cautious to purchase a home that has had those types of issues in the past. I cannot stress enough how important it is to get a home inspection no matter what home you purchase. And you want to make sure you get a really good, credible inspection company to assist you, because once you purchase the home, it's yours. And so anything that comes up afterwards, any problems, who has to pay for it typically is the new homeowner. So do your due diligence. So my suggestion to you is definitely stay away from these homes that are more likely than not going to cause you issues, especially if there's other options. And you gotta remember, if it has mass appeal, more likely than not, the prices are going to appreciate higher. Location, location, location in real estate matters. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.